To get started with connecting your WooCommerce store, we'll head to the settings menu and go to the integration section where you'll find the WooCommerce logo. Katana's WooCommerce integration actually does support the ability to connect to more than one store. So if you have a situation with your sales channels where you're using more than one WooCommerce entity, you can actually connect more than one directly to your Katana account. This is pretty common for companies that might be selling in different global regions of the world or in different currencies, for example. So to connect, we'll choose the connect option here. And this is where you would want to enter your store address. So this is our testing website. And you'll want to put in the store address without the https:// and then just choose the authorize option. This will take you into the permission settings where you could authorize the connection from your Katana account to WooCommerce. Now, if you ever get hung up here, it's probably because you're signing into your WooCommerce store, not as an admin. So I recommend you get in touch with your webmaster or you log into your admin account for WooCommerce before you do the approval process. So we'll go ahead and hit the approve. And then this will take you back into the connection flow. This connection flow is still very similar to what we have with Shopify. So if you've done Shopify before, this is quite similar to that as well. But basically, the way it works here is if you are working with your WooCommerce store, you need to be able to map where the sales orders are going to be pulling from. So if you've got multiple locations in your Katana account, in my case, I've got 2 locations. This is the location where you're going to select how will those online orders that are on your WooCommerce store pull directly into your Katana account. Now, in the instance where you might be connecting more than one WooCommerce store and you want to bring all of those orders to the exact same stock location, that is also totally possible. A lot of companies are trying to solve this problem where they might have 3 WooCommerce websites, but they're pulling all of the stock from the exact same location for their fulfillment. So what is very handy about this is if you connect 3 WooCommerce stores, you can sync the sales orders to one individual location and turn on Stock Sync and update all of the stock available on every single WooCommerce store. So there are some unique ways to use this, especially if you're using multi-channel sales and single location fulfillment. Just as one example. So when you're doing the connection dialog for other WooCommerce stores, this is where you would be linking directly to where you want those sales orders to map to, which would also be related to where they're going to sync the stock from. So anyway, we'll choose next once we have that decided. Now, this is the first part that you have to go through in order to get the connection to move forward. It's basically done in 2 steps. You have your initial first time setup, and then you have your ongoing settings. And this is what's called the initial import. And the initial import is where you're going to import your customers, your products, and the initial stock levels of your products so you desire. Now, when it comes to importing your customers, you can import 1,000 customers at a time in your initial import. So if you turn this on and you've got 50,000 customers on your WooCommerce account, all of them might not be in your Katana account on the first connection. So do keep in mind that we import the first 1,000 in the initial import, and after that they come in with your sales order. So you can turn this on and import all of your customers, and then also you can import all of your products. You might want to turn that off if you're just doing something like a simple, like changing locations, for example, like you need to reconfigure your connection on WooCommerce. That's one thing you can do if you want to keep it turned off. But usually in the very, very first connection, you'll want to bring in both. So how does the import products work? Okay, there's a lot of details with respect to products on WooCommerce. The 2 main products that Katana and the WooCommerce integration support are simple products and variable products. Now, these are very important with respect to how they work. When you are importing for the very first time, Katana has what they call a matching process. So maybe you already have something already pre-existing in your Katana account. So what Katana will do is, the most important thing, of course, is to make sure that you have SKUs for the products on your WooCommerce account. This way, if Katana will import new products, it will identify if there is an existing SKU on your Katana account and not make a duplicate. But if it does find a product that doesn't have a matching SKU, then it will try to find a mapped ID, which is between your Katana account and WooCommerce account, which you cannot see. There will be a mapped ID, and if it doesn't find a match there, then it will create a new product. So we do have like built-in levers to help prevent you from creating duplicates in the initial setup process for your products. But a couple of the most important things to make sure of is having SKUs for everything will be a major help with respect to not creating duplicates. But if it's your very first time importing, then of course it's not a big deal. So that's one basic thing. The two types of products are simple and variable products that get imported from WooCommerce into your Katana account. Simple products are really basic on your WooCommerce account because the way they're designed is you just have one product, one variant with its own SKU and all of the data related to it. It's very straightforward. But if you're selling on your WooCommerce account, which is common or most probable with the majority of e-commerce websites selling products, is you'll have variations, and variations are supported by variable products. So when you're setting up your WooCommerce account and you have a product family, I'll give you a little overview of what I mean by a product family. Is if we look at all of our products here, you'll see that if I open up a t-shirt, there is a specific type of product that this is called, and this one is called product data, simple product. But there's also other types, grouped, external, variable. So Katana and WooCommerce integration supports simple products and variable products, so keep that in mind. But with variable products, in order for them to import correctly into Katana, you need to make sure that every single product variation has a unique SKU, otherwise it will not import. This is super critical because with the WooCommerce side, it doesn't require you to add a SKU to your variable products. It just makes them available as a selectable item from your WooCommerce website. So in this case, you need to make sure that your variations do have unique SKUs to be imported properly from your WooCommerce site. Okay, so moving on from the import products, that's kind of a little overview of how that works. You can also bring in your initial stock levels. So a lot of new and first-time users are using the inventory level that's available on your WooCommerce website, but we encourage that if you're going to use Katana for its intended purpose, to use Katana as your source of truth when it comes to inventory. And if you're setting it up for the first time and you're going to bring in your stock level of products, you will pull that stock level directly from your WooCommerce website because it would be expected that that is the source of truth at the time of the integration. So you can basically import your product as well as import the initial stock levels of those products. Now, here is something down below where it says with an initial cost of 0 to 100%. Now, this is a very simplified way of calculating cost, but let's assume that all of the products that you sell on your e-commerce store, you sell at a 50% margin. So basically the way you would pull in the initial cost value of those items is by what percentage of the sales price equals the cost. So if you sell something for $10 on your WooCommerce store, let's say it's tax exclusive, meaning that you only add sales tax at the time of purchase. So it's $10, then your cost would at 50% would be $5. So if you import t-shirts and you have 10 of them in stock and they come into your WooCommerce account and they cost $10 a piece, it's $100 of sales value, but this is going to import as $50 worth of stock. So that way in the future, anytime you're tracking your cost of goods sold with respect to the items that are on your sales order, you'll be selling them at a 50% margin according to this initial cost. Now, of course, when it comes to cost tracking, you're going to use Katana's real-time cost tracking, meaning like what do you actually purchase for materials and what do you spend on operations to really get the proper cost for all of the products that you sell. But in order to get your initial stock cost value in place or your inventory value, you would use this formula here to calculate a percentage of the sales price, which equals the cost of those items. So again, at 50%, you have $100 worth of stock that you would make revenue from, but it'd be 50% of that would be $50 or $5 a piece for 10 units of t-shirts, for example. So that's just kind of a nice little overview of how that works. This is not always the best possible way to create that calculation, but this is the initial cost calculation that we would do with respect to this import. If you need to later, of course, you can go back in and do a full stock update and change the cost value for your existing inventory. That's not a problem. But to get the data in, they do have to carry some cost, so we just put it as a specific percentage of the sales price. And that's pretty much it with respect to your initial import: customers, products, and stock levels. I'm also going to import the stock levels of mine at 50% of their sales value. Okay, next up here is what we call the order sync going forward. So this basically means that once you're connected and your connection is live, what happens from that moment forward? Well, there's two types of things that Katana can track for you, and that is your order fulfillment status as well as your stock level, what gets pushed from Katana back to your WooCommerce store. First, talking a little bit about order fulfillment state between Katana and WooCommerce. When it comes to the order fulfillment status, this is basically what is the state of a sales order. When somebody is buying something on your WooCommerce website, you're going to have an order that gets placed on a shopping cart. They're going to put in their card details, and then the order is going to be created. Now, an order that gets created is basically one that has been paid for but is not currently shipped. This is the most common e-commerce scenario. So if it hasn't been shipped yet, the status for that order is what WooCommerce calls processing. In Katana, the status for an order that comes in which is not presently completed is called not shipped. So basically, when somebody's placing an order on your website and then the order has been made but not fulfilled, it still gets imported into Katana as a not shipped order. But once the order is sent out, then this processing status goes from processing to delivered. And so a order that is listed as delivered in Katana then becomes completed in WooCommerce. So we have this order fulfillment sync that syncs processing with not shipped and then completed with delivered. So that's the relationship between Katana and WooCommerce order statuses. Now, talking a bit about the synchronized stock levels from Katana to WooCommerce, Katana will push back the inventory from your Katana account stock values directly to your WooCommerce store in real time. So anytime you have an item that has an SKU associated with it, that SKU of that item will be matched to your WooCommerce side, and then when a transaction takes place, an order is sent out, it gets depleted, that update gets pushed back to your WooCommerce store. Or anytime you manufacture something, then the update says that more product has become available. There's also this other little checkbox down here below that says commitments from orders created in Katana reduce the availability of stock in WooCommerce. So what does this mean? It looks a little confusing, but basically there are certain use cases with manufacturers who maybe are small manufacturers, for example. They carry a limited amount of inventory on their WooCommerce website. Maybe it's 10 units of stock. But if you're doing B2B sales and those are bigger orders, often make to order, meaning that there's a good chance that you would sell something B2B because you still have to make it before you can ship it out. So it's like a make to order workflow. What some customers do is they create a sales order inside of Katana, like originating in Katana, not from your WooCommerce store, but on your Katana account. And that specific sales order is designed to be made to order. And what would happen is if you create a commitment against your products through a sales order, and let's say you have 10 units in stock on your website, but then you make a sales order in Katana for 100 units that are make to order, then the 10 units on your website will go into -90 because 10 of them would be consumed, and then another 90 would be required in order to go into back order. But the fact is you have 10 still in stock, which you can send off to clients, but you have 100 that you have to make specifically as a make to order. So if the sales order does not originate from WooCommerce, but it originates meaning that you manually created inside of Katana, then we can actually ignore the commitment that it generates. So that way it doesn't affect the available stock levels directly on your WooCommerce store. So this type of setting can be set up to facilitate that use case. All right. And once you have everything set up in this case, then you can just hit the confirm to move on. One last thing before I finish this off is that these checkboxes here should be only turned on when you're ready to really start using Katana with your WooCommerce store. If, for example, you, let's say, have the automatic synchronization of orders turned on, and then you complete an order on Katana, it will update your WooCommerce site, and it might send an email to your client saying that the order is completed. You don't want to have a situation like that, so you should only turn these on when you're ready to go. And also with the synchronized stock levels, again, same situation. You don't want to turn on the stock sync if you're making product available on your website and it's not truly correct. So a couple of things to keep in mind before you turn those on and use them. And just choose confirm, and then the connection will begin, and all of your customers, sales orders, and products will start to be imported. And once everything is done, you can go directly to your sales screen, and then you'll see those sales orders as they flow in. So I've actually imported about 6 orders, and what you can see, which is unique for the integration, is there's a little WooCommerce logo here off to the right. Over here, you can see the Shopify orders that are off to the right. And anything that's a white box is actually manually created here in this Katana account. In this case, demo data. But yeah, you can click directly on those orders to go straight into your WooCommerce store to see where they are. And then here you have the other orders, and if you open those up, then you'll see the order number and the items inside of it. All of the products that came from your WooCommerce store will be made available on the items list. So for example, what I imported in our case was t-shirts. I have a filter turned on. Here it is, shirts. So yeah, this was imported from our WooCommerce store. And the WooCommerce store, which you can see here, from looking at products, will include the shirts like so. The SKU like so. And also inside of your Katana account, you'll find all of your customer contacts from the contacts list. So that should give you a nice little overview. Next up, we're going to do a sales workflow to show you how the order creation works and how order fulfillment sync works.